Stepping back, loads up, looks long, throws, end zone, touchdown, Alabama! Devontae Smith, touchdown, Alabama! And the Crimson Tide has once again ascended to the top of the college.
I'm fucking real, bro. You ain't shit.
I mean, if I can't say something that just cut cold or make someone laugh, I don't even type it.
You fucking punk-ass bitch!
Jesus Christ, that hurt. I'm still got a headache over that.
I'm the greatest man talking on the fucking face of the earth right now. You should be thanking me that I'm talking about Tennessee. You guys can't coach, to be honest with you. He's just a high school coach.
Fuck me.
What is it about Winston? Where's Winston? With the pie, not feeling good.
Yeah, go ahead, Unabomber. What the fuck you was saying about the SEC, bro?
Don't be ridiculous right now, okay?
No, USC is far better than Oklahoma historically.
Can we get a timeout just for half a second?
Because I want motherfuckers like you every goddamn day!
I just can't believe y'all put a statue of this guy already at your campus.
Dude, whatever you're smoking, buy a ton of it.
You fucking punk-ass bitch!
Then it makes me look like I got owners.
Smacking off.
We're back on Smacking Off, the podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Madden. I'm joined with producer and co-host, Mr. Doug Phillips. Doug?
I'm doing wonderful.
I know you are.
Yep.
You know why, don't you?
Absolutely.
The Alabama Crimson Tide. The Alabama Crimson Tide is your new national champion. Seems like we say that a lot over the past few years, but that's number 6 for Saban. He is now tied with the almighty Bear Bryant for 6 titles apiece.
Did you catch them asking him about that? He basically answered that perfectly. He said that Bryant was the greatest of all time.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. He's made a very strong argument.
I mean, let's face it. It wouldn't have been a popular thing for him to say, yeah, I've overtaken Bryant. He knows he has.
Yes.
He definitely has.
Yes, and of course, he was ever the diplomat whenever a TV camera's on and somebody's not asking a stupid question. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but look, they've already got a statue of the guy down there, and there's a reason for that, a very good reason for that. You don't just go make a very expensive bronze statue out of just anybody. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. So why is this the first time that we've seen Tua in a game that was on the line?
Well, look, I feel absolutely sick to my stomach for Jalen Hurts right now. I really do. Honestly, no bullshit. He is in probably one of the worst spots you could ever imagine. A guy that has led his team to 2 national championship games. A guy that has gone 25-2 over his short career. And then we're just going to toss him to the side.
There is another way to look at this. He's not going to get drafted as a quarterback. He can't throw. He's not going to get drafted to the NFL as a quarterback. He needs to convert to tailback at Alabama.
Well, look, and everybody made the same argument about Tebow. I liked what was listening to the roundtable guys.
Tebow could throw when he had to.
Which one was it? Was it? I can't remember. It may have been Aldo Greco had said something to the effect of, once you finally attain that position as the leader of the team, the team quarterback, once you kind of get a taste of that, it's really hard to go back. And again, it's going to come down to his own personal ego. Jalen has been very selfless and very almost devoid of ego during his short career at Alabama. You saw the national championship game, a very emotional, very sincere Jalen Hurts immediately rushed out onto the field. Was one of the first players from the bench to rush out on the field to go find Tua and congratulate him.
I felt terrible watching the whole thing.
Yeah.
In a moment that I felt wonderful at the same time. But,
yeah, because that's the future of Alabama at quarterback.
And it's not.
That threw at will against
it's not the distant future, it's the immediate future.
That threw at will against one of the best defenses in the land. That kid was on fire. He was so fun to watch. It was so fun to watch an Alabama quarterback light it up like that, too.
He made some errors.
We don't see a lot of that,
He made some freshman errors, too. But
absolutely he did.
I'm still irritated that we didn't win the game in regulation. When are we going to get a goddamn kicker?
Yeah. Again, when you have the defense that Alabama does, which the defense really was, although Tua was very special to watch, and and definitely won us the game. Our defense kept us in the game the whole entire
Oh, definitely.
game. Yeah. That game could have been worse had Jalen stayed.
If Jalen stays in the game, I think we get blown out.
Oh, man.
I'm looking at something like
that, and our kicking game going to shit. I mean, what do we have left?
I'm looking at something like 28-10.
Yeah.
If Jalen stays in the game, but I think Jalen. I don't think he's going to get drafted as a quarterback. So if he transfers,
there's no way he's going to get drafted as a quarterback.
Well, what better place to showcase? Because he is an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
He can do all kind of stuff, and he can run it. He can also play some quarterback at position as a tailback.
Absolutely.
He could contribute so much to this team, even with Tua as the starting quarterback.
And again,
and he would also be our backup quarterback, because if Tua goes down, Jalen is very capable.
Well, and it also puts your number 3 in a better position too, because again, if you're putting Jalen on the field that much in different, facing probably a little bit more in the teeth of opposing teams' defenses. I mean, that is more of an opportunity for him to get banged up. It's more of an opportunity for him to wear down a little bit. Being the athlete that he is, he should do fine. But when you also have that guy as your number 2 quarterback, and there's something goes down there, and then God forbid something happens to Tua, then
do you see Saban doing a double quarterback system?
I really don't. We saw that. Remember, we saw that at Auburn,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a horrible failure.
Yeah, it's hard to get a rhythm going when you got 2 guys coming in, because especially those 2 guys, 2 different styles.
Saban's offense, it revolves around one game manager. Now, at the same time, though, if you have 2 quarterbacks in that situation, you've got your other quarterback in whatever position they decide to put him in. At that point, you also have a strength where you have someone who was at that game manager level, and you have your game manager and someone else who used to be the game manager who's also going into it with no ego and is there to be a team player. You suddenly now have 2 game managers that are working cohesively with one another.
I would love to see it.
That would be cool.
Did you notice that Alabama's defense even started playing better when Tua come in?
Oh, man.
I don't think that they had any confidence that Jalen was going to score.
Yeah, they were starting to see it was going to be a long night, and they started thinking about the Clemson game last year, and of course how that wound up ending up. It was just, I mean, the whole team just suddenly just picked right back up.
It was, this year is definitely Saban's. It's the top of the heap for Saban coaching jobs.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people argue it was a no-brainer to put him in. When he put him in,
it really was.
Some people have speculated, why didn't you put him in sooner? And just like you asked when we started this conversation,
I thought he should have went in the second quarter.
Yeah, because really all we've seen him, air it out a couple times this season, but we've mainly seen him hand it off.
Had he went in the second quarter, the game probably wouldn't have went down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama probably would have won by 10.
Yeah. Then again,
give more time to make some mistakes.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda on that, because then, I think there was less pressure for him to come out starting the half versus than taking a quarter over. Because, I mean, that would have, I don't know, everybody needed to get a really good look at the offense, a really good look at Georgia's defense at that point on Alabama's staff to evaluate that just simply Jalen just didn't have it in him.
Yep, he did.
And he's provided opposing teams so much game film in areas where he's just completely just bottomed out. I mean, the Washington game last year that Alabama won convincingly, mind you, but that was largely a defensive effort.
Had they been stopping our run, we would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's what Georgia was doing. They were stopping our run.
We had to have a balanced attack. And again, that's how Oklahoma was able to take them into double overtime, having a balanced
Do you know how we
attack.
got back to having a balanced attack, though? It took Tua coming in and throwing just about every down for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And not just throwing, but completing passes. And then Georgia said, shit, we got to back up a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
And when they did, then the run game opened up again.
Smacking Off invites you to join us on the podcast. If you have an opinion on an upcoming game, some commentary on your conference, or want to roll with one of your fellow smackers on air, hit us up. You can message us at the Smacking Off or X's and O's Facebook pages. Email me at maddenShannon@toothfairy.com or call us on the Smack line, 304-508-BAIT. And as always, fuck your team.
But anyway,
great coaching.
I was a happy guy.
Yeah, I was too. Very, very, and I don't know. I was still optimistic going into the second half, 13-0, because it was still a very manageable game at that point.
I told Kat if Saban will put 2 in, we'll have a shot. She didn't think he'd put them in. She said he's too hard-headed. He's not going to put them in.
Yeah, but
Saban hates to lose.
Saban reloaded on his offensive coordinator for last year's national championship game. So don't think for a second if the chips aren't down, he'll try something if he knows it's going to work.
Or if he knows it's got to. Here's the thing. Some people are saying it was brilliant. No, it was desperation.
Yes. He didn't have it. There was no other choice.
No choice whatsoever. You can't if a team is doing what Georgia was doing, you cannot answer with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, you get blown out.
Mm-hmm. Every time.
Right.
Well, thankfully that didn't happen for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we get to hold our nuts till September.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving that. We've got a great episode tonight, as usual. We have the CFP boys back to talk about what just went down. Also, there's going to be some conversation with one of
Sean Vergowven.
Yeah, that is one of the Seans. We've got too many Seans to keep up with.
Yeah,
Sean
he's
Devine,
he's a UCF apologist this week.
Yes, that should prove to be very entertaining because again, we have and this has actually been an ongoing debate for a while because of the UCF. What are they? What's their mascot again?
The Black Knights.
The Black Knights. Is that right?
Yeah.
Why is it the Black Knights?
Why not the White Knights?
Nah, I can't do the White Knights. Some other team took that a long time ago. The UCF Black Knights are swearing up and down that they are the national championships. They are the only undefeated. They have, I believe, awarded themselves a trophy. Everybody's getting rings this year. The coach even gets, I don't think Frost, but whoever the rest of the assistants that are left on the
I feel for
squad.
Him. I feel for him, and I think we need to give them a surprise tonight.
Yeah. They beat are smacking off Butch Jones Life champion this year, the Auburn Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of debate going into the polls that should we wait until the postseason is completely done and until we award our life champion. And we this year felt that we needed to award it to a regular season life champion, which was the Auburn Tigers, without a doubt. However, just stay tuned.
Well, hold on now. Wouldn't that be moving the goalpost in the middle of the game?
No, I think it's moving it to the end of the game where it should have been to begin with.
Well, in the spirit of moving the goalpost, which is exactly what the UCF Dick Riders are actually asking for, I think we're the only organization that will accommodate them.
I think so, and I think if we go ahead and we lead the way on this, that more small podunk newspapers for community colleges will pick up on it, and I think we can start a run.
Can we start also issuing retro life championships because Tulane. 1998.
Yeah, I saw that in the thread earlier. I don't know that. We got a lot of off season
and several Boise teams.
Oh yeah. Oh, most definitely.
We can pretend that the Life Championship started back in '95. We can start showing the pictures of Butch Jones when he was in band. Remember? You ever seen that picture?
Yes, I have. That is a beautiful picture.
It is.
I need to change that for my profile pic.
Yep.
But I think that would be disrespectful to Mr. Jeremy Pruitt. Do you think he's going to do good there?
It's possible.
Oh, Tennessee, he's got Fulmer up his ass.
Anything's possible, but usually, this is his first head coach's job. I think his chances are under 50% that he succeeds.
No, well, how does he get the length of time that what did Butch get? Like 5 years?
Too damn long.
Yeah, way too damn long. But
But if they would have cut him off earlier, then he wouldn't have gotten that inaugural Life Championship last year.
But we've talked about this in the past, though. You look at guys like, let's say Bill Snyder over at K-State or Bobby Bowden at Florida State. Look at the trajectory of their careers earlier in their career. They had 4, 5, 6 years where they were 7-5, 8-4. Then they'd have a down year and go 6-6, and barely eke into a bowl this year, so on and so forth, before they develop their programs into actual perennial top 10 finishes, and in Bobby Bowden's case, national championships. And it took him a long time to get to that point to really cement that as, the standard at Florida State, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everybody wants to feel bad for Butch, but then again, you look at the way that their season ended. That's unexcusable. This is Tennessee.
I know. And it just fell apart. It went so bad that you couldn't even picture it getting any worse. And then it actually did get worse. After Butch was gone, the team just completely
gave up. Just gave the fuck up.
Yep.
I ran into, this is just weird on that subject, I guess. I ran into a Mike Shula apologist the other day, Alabama's former head coach.
An apologist meaning taking up for him as a head coach?
Yes, as Alabama's head coach
during his tenure. Up against Saban?
Yes. Well, no, not against Saban.
Well, there's another way to look at it, though.
No, not against Saban. He was basically just saying that Mike Shula was a much better coach than people were giving him credit for. And I think that his career at the University of Alabama says completely differently.
I mean, Saban was able to come in. It took him a year to shake everything out. And then by 2008,
he didn't completely destroy the program. It's not like he pulled a Urban Meyer at Florida,
By 2008, with one recruiting class that he basically come in right before signing day almost. A month before signing day. With one recruiting class under his belt, by his second season, he had Alabama ranked number 1 and went into the SEC championship game with, if we win, we're in the national championship game. We would have been, Alabama would have been playing Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Lost to Tebow, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how quick he was able to turn even the players that...
We lost to Tebow, who was still arguably one of the greatest college quarterbacks
That's
ever.
how quickly he was able to turn a nucleus that Mike Shula recruited.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shula, he had his 2005 season. What did they go, 10-2?
Yeah.
I think Alabama ended up, if I'm not mistaken, did they forfeit most of those games?
Yeah.
Over something, over an ineligible player or something.
Yeah.
But anyway. All right. Let's, you ready to get on to this episode?
Yeah, let's crank it up.
I've seen a lot of winners in my time, but this one here is a real tough All-American. It's Ford, America's truck. And now it's got a great option play going for it.
Save up to $795 off the regular sticker price on special Explorer pickups with options like two-tone paint, special interiors, tilt steering, air conditioning, automatic transmission, and lots more.
$795 off of this Explorer pickup is a big deal.
I don't consider myself a troll, really. I consider myself a
I don't know about, bro, not me, bro. I don't know about Justin.
Speak goddamn women and something, man. I'll beat your goddamn brains out.
Yeah, but it was still a horrible look for Oklahoma.
Dude, whatever you're smoking, buy a ton of it.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
All right, guys, it's time to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you our CFP Square Table participants for the evening to talk about the big game. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sean Cagle, Mr. Sean Devine, Curtis Dyers Jr., and Mr. Timothy Bailey. Our CFP Square Table.
So, what you think of the game, Sean?
I thought it was pretty good. I was really there in the first half. I was thinking they were going to run the score up on us big time. Really surprised that he went to Tua, but that's what everybody wanted. That's what I wanted. Like I said last week, if they'd have went to him earlier in the year, we'd have probably been undefeated.
If they didn't put Tua in, I believe we were going to get blown out.
Oh, yeah, we would have lost big time, yeah. But it was a good game all in all. There was I saw a lot of calls on both sides of the ball, both teams, and they just let them play. There was a lot of plays that could have been personal fouls, big time, ejections out of the game, but they let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Big Ten officiating crew. I'm hearing a lot of griping about the officiating today.
Oh yeah, I know. I heard it.
And that leads me to my next question, Curtis. Tell us your impressions of the game.
Basically, it started out pretty good for the first half. Some of the play calling on behalf of Jim Chaney was kind of predictable. Let's keep sending Chubb up the middle, even though they're stacking the box and they're stopping them every time. And a lot of other plays was pretty original, and he gave Fromm a good chance to to prove that he can throw the ball, which he did in several occasions. But offense didn't really seem much of a problem as it was the secondary. Now the secondary, we had a problem when Tua came in because there was no way that they were able to stop Ridley. And our secondary's been weak. It was exposed during the Missouri game, and I knew when he came in. Because I've seen Tua, during the Vanderbilt game, that's when I really noticed this kid. Like, oh crap, he can throw the ball.
Right.
And he was nothing like Hurts. But when he came in the game, I knew it was a game changer then. But I'm still proud of the Dogs. For the second-year coach, for Kirby to do what he did, and to take them that far. I'm proud of him.
Absolutely, an excellent season.
Yeah.
And
hell yeah, you can't take anything away from Georgia. They played their ass off.
They're actually ahead of schedule.
Oh yeah,
and looking to the future as a Bama fan, I'm definitely concerned.
Yeah, I can see this. Them two seeing each other for like the next 3 or 4 years to come. I can see that happening.
All right, Timothy, what was your thoughts on the game?
Well, first of all, I do think that the better team ended up winning in this game, but I will say this. Tua is definitely a game changer for Alabama. I mean, it really changes the complexion of that entire team. I mean, he really opened – with him in the lineup, Alabama was really able to open up the playbook and do a lot of things that fit some more of what their personnel is. Because, we talked about this in the preview. Alabama has great skill players, and they just weren't getting the opportunities. I mean, we were talking about it. I mean, I listened to it last night, and I'm like, a dude catches a touchdown who had 7 catches on the year. Another dude catches a touchdown with 9 catches on the year. I mean, it was pretty crazy. I think Georgia did overall a really, really good job on Calvin Ridley. A lot better job than I thought they'd be able to do. If Tua came in the game, or Jalen had one of those games he has from time to time where he looks okay as a passer. I will say this, though, for Georgia. I would be heartbroken if I was Curtis because, obviously I know what you're going through. I went through the same thing last week. That was a tough way to lose. And I think that your offensive coaches, even though Georgia's ahead of schedule and you're playing with house money, that was one of the worst play-calling second halves I've seen. And we saw 2 of them in bowl season, and both of them were in the playoffs, where you just take your foot off the gas with a lead against a team that, Tua with Alabama was better than Georgia with Tua, but they weren't so much better than Georgia that Georgia should have given up a 13-point handicap.
That's too conservative.
In my perspective.
No, it was conservative play, and that's what I mentioned earlier. It was the fact that Chaney was being predictable. He was being predictable. To stop trying to run Chubb up the middle. If they're jamming it up, if they're putting eight in the box and he can't get through there, don't send him through there. And
Alabama had no answer for Fromm all evening long, really.
No, they couldn't. And the slant passes that they were going, he was cutting out. That was working. Even some that he was throwing down the field, those were working. It's just,
The thing that kept that game close actually was on the opening series of the game. If Fromm throws that ball in a better spot, the one that gets picked off, and Alabama goes down and gets that field goal attempt. If Fromm puts that in the right spot, that's 6 for Georgia.
Yeah, that was a touchdown if he'd have caught it.
Let me ask this, guys. Am I the only one that's thinking this? Was Georgia a different team before that second interception in the third quarter? Because
yes, they were.
That's where it changed right there. They at that point they said the coaches decided we're not going to lose this game by making an error, and I think it did cost them the game.
See, and what frustrates me...
That's where the conservative came from. The conservative plan came from,
see, here's the thing with me. I think Georgia should have been the last team to do that. They just watched it happen for them on the other side a week before. You would think them of all teams having, wouldn't have done that.
Okay, we got to get a Notre Dame perspective here. Sean Devine, tell us about it. This game.
I thought it was an exciting game for the most part. Really, the second half, but Georgia has nobody to blame but themselves. This is a game that they let get away. And all credit to Nick Saban for finally making the move that some of us have been saying since week one, putting Tua in.
Do you know why? Here's my theory on this.
The first missed throw where Hurts overthrew that guy that was wide open on the right corner of the end zone, I think in the first half.
Yeah.
When the Georgia DB fell down, I said, you got to put Tua in right now.
That's what I was thinking.
Hurts doesn't have he doesn't have it.
But hey, let me get y'all's opinion on this. I really believe that Saban held up on putting Tua in because I think Saban knew what was going to happen when he put Tua in. In a game like that, because Hurts is done.
Yeah, his position
was almost like
he will never start again.
No.
That was like Saban-esque. I don't think he put him in because that would give away too much of what he was going to try to do. The defense wasn't thinking Tua was going to go in. He hasn't put him in all year unless we were up big. Mm-hmm. I don't think Georgia's defense practiced for that much the week leading up to the game, not thinking that Tua would be in there.
Right.
No, I'm pretty sure they was expecting Saban to be cocky and to think that that he can keep Hurts in there and they'll run on the defense and everything. But in my way of trying to think like Saban, I was like, well, maybe he was trying to keep Hurts in to run the defense down and to keep them tired, to keep running them around the field and chasing them around the field. Because as you've seen, the defense for Georgia, they was gassed, man.
They were.
They was gassed.
Yeah, Hurts did have a few big old runs, too.
Yeah, and they were gassed trying to chase him down. And after that, that's when Tua started going over their head. And, the secondary was getting burned. And I believe it was just excellent play calling from Saban.
Well, here's one thing I will say.
Confusing.
When you saw the last play before the field goal attempt in the first half, or in the second half before overtime, Saban put in Jalen Hurts in the game to make sure that he executed that stuff. I think that Saban, though he felt that Tua might have the higher ceiling, is probably a little sporadic. And we saw that. Tua threw a really
they had to waste the time. They had to waste the time out. He let the clock run down.
Well, not only that, but he threw a really bad interception to start the half, and you thought, okay, this game's a wrap. When that happened, it kind of felt like that. And then the other one was he threw an interception in the red zone that probably should have been called an interception, and had it been called an interception on a field, it wouldn't have flipped, but it was close enough to where the play stood since it was called incomplete on the field in the red zone. So Tua does put the ball in harm's way a little bit, and I think that might have the reason why Saban was struggled so hard to go to him.
He's still young.
Oh, sure.
The first interception he threw was actually supposed to be a run play, and he read it wrong from the sideline.
Right. I didn't say that he doesn't have a bright future. He's a very good player, but I'm saying there's some risk reward with him right now.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with why Saban didn't put him. But here's the other thing that really bothers me about this game. Nick Chubb had 17 carries for 25 yards, and Sony Michel had I don't know, what was it, something like 10 or
95, 97 yards.
And he didn't touch the ball the last 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, that was kind of weird to me too. If that's the playmaker, if that's the man that's getting you up the field, why would you stop giving him the ball, feed him the ball?
Well, see, I thought there'd be more throws to that big-ass tight end y'all got, too.
Oh, Nada?
Yeah.
Nada, oh, no, he was covered. He was covered that whole night.
There was some plays where he was open, and Fromm just didn't even look his way or just didn't even see him. He scanned over him.
Well, Fromm has never been the one that's actually been the one that throws to Nada. That was Jacob Eason's guy. And Fromm got real familiar with Williams and Godwin. So, those are always, a quarterback and receiver relationship is pretty tight. If they trust you, you're going to get the ball. And
I was really surprised with Riley Ridley. I think he did pretty damn good in the game.
He did for not really seeing him much of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty absent. I remember him last year. Last season, he was all over the place catching balls. Him and his brother, they're both amazing. And I didn't hear anything from him for like weeks, months until last night.
Yeah, it's like the O.J. Howard in the previous national championships with Clemson. He didn't do anything throughout the year hardly, and then he was big time when it come to the national championship.
Of course, I believe he's just trying to show up on his brother, and you're on the big stage, so of course he's trying to show out.
Yeah, but they're both phenomenal. I mean, he's got a big damn time future too, just like his brother.
Yeah. They're going to see each other a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we're definitely looking at some more Bama Georgia matchups here in the coming years.
Oh yeah,
I can see that happening.
I definitely think that'll be the SEC championship most seasons for the next, at least for the foreseeable future. I do see Georgia not necessarily falling off, being a 10-win team again, being good, getting to the SEC title game. But it is always tough when you replace, some experienced guys, and they lost a lot of seniors. So I do think that I'm not sure I see them as a playoff contender, but I do see them right there in the mix.
But I mean, they got a good recruiting class. I mean, they did.
Sure. So
Kirby's doing damn good. I mean, he's like way ahead of schedule on everything.
Yeah, he really is. He's done a great job. He's done an absolutely excellent job, and I think the best part about Kirby, from what I've seen, is that he motivates his guys to play. It's not just about the X's and O's, and it's not just because you're curious sometimes when people switch from a coordinator spot to to a head man position. It's a little different, but he really, he's really done an excellent job. I mean, all around, he's recruiting well. He's putting in good game plans, but also he has that voice that those guys listen to, and that's special to have all of that.
Yeah, I think the SEC will be pretty interesting next year, though.
Look out for Missouri next year.
I'm thinking Florida. I want to see what Mississippi State's going to be able to do. And then with Pruitt going to Tennessee, that defense, I give them 2 years, and they're going to be pretty damn good.
Have you been butthurt by the Alabama Crimson Tide? Call me, Attorney Bobby Shinora. I will fight for you. Alabama butthurt me so bad I couldn't even go to work. I needed a check. Bobby Shinora told me to check these championships. Do you want a big check for your butthurt too? Alabama butt hurt me so bad, I burned down my meth lab. I needed some money. Bobby Shinora got me this LSU credit card. It's got less miles and no points. I'm Attorney Bobby Shinora, and I will fight for you. I talked so much trash before the game, I can't even log on to Facebook anymore. Bobby Shinora got me this big glass of shut the boom! So if you've been butthurt by the Alabama Crimson Tide, call me, Attorney Bobby Shinora. Join my list of satisfied clients that have gotten what they deserve. Do you want a big check for your butthurt too? Call me, Attorney Bobby Shinora. I will fight for you.
Call Bobby, 800-BUTT-HURT.
The 24-hour bug. When he hits your stomach, he makes you miserable. Nothing can make him go away, but something can make him easier to live with. Pepto-Bismol liquid. Pepto-Bismol's coating action soothes the nausea and relieves the upset that makes you feel so awful. Take Pepto-Bismol liquid until the bug stops bugging you.
But I mean, it's still Tennessee though, so it's.
Yeah, I mean they got a lot of work. They got a lot of work to do, but I think with this move right here, we'll get them in the direction they need to go.
Lack talent. That's not the problem in Knoxville. So, to be honest, in general, most SEC programs don't lack talent. The issue has been for the last few years coaching, because there hasn't been great coaches in the SEC. I mean, now Kirby Smart joins the fray. We weren't really sure what he was going to be about last year. We had to wait and see. He's way ahead of schedule, but you have Saban, you have Kirby, and is your third best Malzahn. I mean, and then down the line, not great coaching. the verdict's still out on some of these other guys. We'll see what Jeremy Pruitt does as the head man, and Dan Mullen too.
I mean, Dan Mullen. I mean, you got to look at him. He took Mississippi State where the best they'd ever been. I have no problem saying that he's going to be good at Florida. I mean,
yeah, I can see that too.
I'm not 100% sold, because sometimes those guys that do well at those lower tier programs aren't always able to translate that at the elite level. And plus, people aren't going to be as patient as they were at Mississippi State. At Florida, they're not going to be patient because, listen, McElwain wasn't the best coach, but he did get to back-to-back SEC championship games. And when he showed up at Florida, they didn't have an offensive lineman on scholarship. And they gave him 3 years and kicked him. I mean, I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense for Florida. I mean, if they don't give Mullen the time he needs, it's not going to fix anything either. This is not going to be a 2-year project down there.
But see, that's the thing. That's the only thing that worries me about that whole situation with Mullen down there. If Matt came in the first year, first couple of years he came in, he was already going to the SEC championship. He pretty much has some huge shoes to fill because this is the coach that you're replacing. So I mean, he's already getting in a chair that's already hot.
And you're right. It's not going to be acceptable to go to that neutral site matchup that Florida, for the most part, over the last several years, has for the large part dominated. It's not going to be acceptable to get your ass kicked every year. And if that happens, 2 years. Let's say that Georgia beats them 2 or 3 out of the next 4 years. That's not going to look good.
No, I can
he
see
might not
them.
even get there for 4 years if he loses 3 times in a row to Georgia.
They could easily turn around and be in the same situation that Tennessee was with, like, getting rid of coaches back to back and just being stuck in a rut. Right. I can see that happening.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Because I like Dan Mullen, but I also, this is a different responsibility, and that's why I told people at Florida State who are excited about Taggart, I said, this is a different opportunity. You need to wait and see. You can't just freak out and be like, hell yeah, hell yeah. I remember a coach at Tennessee who recruited really well and just got fired.
Right.
So, relax. Let's see what they do, because this is a different challenge.
Let's get Sean to weigh in on this. I haven't heard from Sean Devine on the SEC next year and what his thoughts are.
Well, just to add to that discussion with Florida, from what I read and heard, there were some extenuating circumstances that led to McElwain's dismissal. It wasn't just his wins and losses and recruiting. To put a bow on that. But as far as next season, the West is, going to be probably similar to this year. I think, your top 3 are going to be Alabama, Auburn, and LSU. A&M's got a new coach. Yeah, Missouri, they might rattle some tables.
The dark horse.
The East, but they are a little bit of a dark horse. But I still see Georgia owning the East. Yeah, I think sneakily, maybe on finishing second in the East, I could see Muschamp in South Carolina. I give them a lot of credit for
they have an experienced team.
Not quitting in that game against Michigan. They were down 19-3.
Right.
And they didn't quit, and they came back and won that game. And Muschamp's a sneaky little fellow.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, you take a trip over there to Columbia, and it's a late afternoon game, and you get lulled to sleep, and they'll sneak up and bite you. So, but I expect Georgia to make it back to the championship game, and then probably the winner of the Alabama-Auburn game will meet them there in Atlanta.
What's our thoughts on Oklahoma replacing Baker Mayfield going into the 18 season?
It's going to be hard. I've only seen like a little bit of the quarterback that they had, and he was supposed to run some play when they was in the Georgia game. I haven't seen much of what he could do. So I don't know if it'll be much of a rebuilding season to actually get him to the point to where he'll be able to function on a high level as Baker Mayfield did. But it'll be interesting to see how that turns out, though.
no one's going to be what Baker Mayfield is, and I think that's a big thing that Oklahoma fans need to make sure they don't put the pressure on Kyler Murray or Austin Kendall, whoever replaces him. The good thing for OU is they recruit the quarterback well. We have 3 blue chippers that are going to be battling for this spot. Obviously, that doesn't mean everything. Kyler Murray's played really well in the mop-up duty that he's played. He actually had a better PFF grade than Baker Mayfield, but obviously he only played, in garbage time, so that's not saying a lot. But I do like that he's added the deep ball to his game. He looks like he's a much more polished passer than he was when he was at Texas A&M. But as long as the expectations and the pressure don't get to those guys, this could be a more physical offense. I could see it being they're going to be able to throw, but it's probably going to be more run oriented with Rodney Anderson and Kyler Murray than it was with Mayfield because of Murray's speed and athleticism. But like I said, you can't expect the kid to be Baker Mayfield. That's where we're going to get in trouble as Sooner fans if we expect that, because we really ruined the years with Landry Jones, who was a good college quarterback, because we wanted him to be Sam Bradford, and it wasn't a fair expectation to have. And that put too much pressure on him, and in big games, he really didn't show out very well, and that's what happens when you, it's obviously hard to beat Oklahoma, but you got to be realistic at the same time as fans. Make sure you're not asking them to be Baker Mayfield or asking them to be Jason White or Sam Bradford. Let them be Kyler Murray, Austin Kendall, whoever is the starter.
I've got to say that this, for 17, the top 3 has got to be the closest top 3 that I've ever seen.
They're pretty damn close.
Alabama,
3 overtimes.
Alabama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. Just it's amazing. I mean, really, you could put these teams in a tournament next week, and I still couldn't tell you who would win it.
No, it'd be close. Yeah.
What's up? Yeah.
Clemson, there was a little bit of separation, or there at least appeared to be. How does everybody see Clemson going into 18?
It just depends on how their quarterback can step up. He's not Deshaun Watson. That's like what you're talking about Oklahoma, what their quarterback's going to do. They had high expectations, thinking he was going to step right in and be just like Deshaun Watson.
I think it may be a Jalen Hurts type situation.
I think fans had the expectations with that, and not Clemson, because Clemson clearly designed an offense around him running the football and not being a passer. They knew he wasn't going to be a passer. Lincoln Riley's already on record said if Baker Mayfield got hurt, he would feel confident against any team if Kyler Murray came in. That we never heard Dabo say stuff like that. And Kyler Murray is a better passer than Bryant, and you could tell that by just a limited amount of action. I mean, he has a third of the same amount of touchdown passes as the dude has, and he only played in like 30 seconds worth of game time. But that being said, when you replace a legend, there's always going to be question marks. Baker Mayfield.
And you're always living in that shadow too.
Right, and Baker Mayfield, like him or hate him, he's top 5 in wins, top 10 in a lot of all-time categories. He's one of the best to ever do it as a college quarterback, and that's huge shoes to fill.
Okay, I thought, wait a minute, when we were talking about Clemson, didn't Clemson get Trevor Lawrence?
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
Okay, so you can't forget that he's back there, and he was like, was he ranked number 1 quarterback in the nation?
I expect Clemson to be in the mix. I'm curious to see what Florida State does, because they get DeAndre Francois back, which is about as big as anything. Because Francois, he's a good quarterback. We'll see what Florida State can do. I would think going into this season that there's 5 or 6 teams that are going to be in the mix for years to come. Obviously, other teams are going to come and go. Here are the teams that I think next year are really the ones to look out for. The 4 that were in this year, you'll have to watch out for them. Obviously, it's not going to happen very often where the SEC teams don't play each other, so only one I would imagine would get in there. Ohio State, and then next year Washington. Washington's returning a lot of good players. They're going to be really experienced.
They just got is it Jacob Eason is transferring to Washington? Is that what?
That's the word that I've heard today too. That he's going to go ahead and go back to Washington.
I actually have a friend who's really close with Jacob Eason, because I actually went to high school in the state of Washington. And Jacob Eason told him that he was going to Washington. I knew before the semifinal game. actually, that he was going to go back to Washington. Now the reports are coming out. I don't think it's technically official yet, but yeah, he's going back to Washington.
Well, that was something that, us as dogs, we pretty much knew that for a while anyway. If he wasn't going towards Miami, to be with Rick, that, yeah, he was going back to Washington. We knew that for a while.
But Jake Browning, keep in mind he came off an injury at the end of 2016. Jake Browning was not the same quarterback that he'd been all year. He was obviously a dynamic passer before that injury. So sometimes it takes quarterbacks a year to get over that injury. So if we can get a Jake Browning, anything like the 16 Jake Browning, Chris Peterson's going to have a good defense and have his guys well coached, and the Pac-12 is very winnable. They could be back next year in the playoff.
So what you're really saying is that Tiggy Doms may be joining the CFP square table next year.
It's possible, man. I have so much respect for Chris Peterson, though, and he deserves a ton of it because.
But he still wouldn't be able to speak until he eat the poo, man. He got to eat the shit.
Yeah, he's got to eat that shit live.
He owes that. He has to eat the shit,
all
man.
All right, and Pike's got to drink pee.
He's got to drink piss, yeah.
Shit, when did Pike make this bet? Did he do that for real?
He did.
Yeah, he did last week.
Oh my God, what was it on the Georgia game? Because I heard he jumped on the Georgia bandwagon. Oh.
Yeah, if Georgia lost, he was going to drink it live on SEC
He
Smack.
jumped on the Georgia bandwagon because he was mad that I messed with him about the Pac-12 being 1-8. So he's like, "Fuck it, well, Oklahoma's going to lose to Georgia," and then jumped on the.
Oh my God, Pike has jumped to so many teams within the past couple of years, man. It's hard to keep up.
How about this theory, Curtis? Georgia lost.
What's that?
Georgia lost because of the Pike curse.
The Pike curse, man. I remember talking about that with y'all guys, man. And when knowing that he had, switched over and jumped on the bandwagon, I was like, no, the Pike curse it's not going to get us. It's not going to get us. And we actually won for a while. But then I swear I will lie to you not, that when it did happen last night, thought crept in my mind where I was like, fucking Pike. And it was like,
that piss
could have been dude. It fucking could have been him.
So my question to you guys is the biggest takeaway from the college football playoff this year, considering that 2 of those games had double-digit comeback victories? Don't take
and overtimes. Yeah, don't play conservative. That's what I come out with it.
Keep your foot on the gas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, you got to deal with the girl that you took to the dance, and I feel like both Oklahoma in their game against Georgia and Georgia against Alabama both didn't dance with the girl that got them to the dance.
Right.
Wild Dog didn't get you to the dance in that championship game. It did. I mean, it did against Oklahoma, but this is Alabama. What got you to that 13-0 lead was Jake Franzon. Yep. Was your receivers making plays.
And Sony Michel making runs.
Timely Sony Michel runs against unstacked Bob.
And Jalen Hurts under center.
And Jalen Hurts.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of that, where do you guys think Hurts is going to end up next year? What do you think's going to happen with Hurts?
He's going to stay at Alabama. He's going to be a running back.
He might.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Yep. Running back, or they're saying he's too small for a receiver, but I think he's the right size for a receiver.
Well, he could be a running back who catches passes, and he could run out of the Wildcat. Right.
Yeah. Like a Cordell Stewart type deal.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I see him staying at Alabama. Saban is not going to give up on that kid. He's done too much for him over the past couple of years,
Well, you go 25-2 in 2 years, you don't.
Exactly. You don't just throw, get rid of that like that.
But don't expect this to just be the end-all, be-all, too, that got the job. I just have I have a feeling Saban really likes Jalen, and this might go the distance.
Well, I mean, when you're replaced in a game to this magnitude, it does a lot to your psyche. He's going to come out even wanting it even more throughout the spring ball and everything.
Jalen has the talent. There's no question there.
Yeah.
But he hasn't been consistent in the one area you have to be to win championships in college football right now. Yes, you have to be good on defense, and you have football. But if you can't throw, you can't.
Yeah, you're a sitting duck. Yeah.
If you can't throw, you can't win. Look at this past.
When you get against the right defense, exactly.
Yeah, you can't do it. And look, every Alabama team that's won the championship, besides the one that played in the first half yesterday, could throw. If they had to. They didn't always have to, but they've had Greg McElroy. They've had A.J. McCarron. Those two guys are really good. But then you also, Coker was really underrated at the end of that season. He was going off. Blake Sims wasn't great. But
Blake Sims is more the one I can compare to Hurts. I mean, he was a lot better passer than Hurts when he passed, but I think Hurts is better running, but he was a dual threat quarterback just like Hurts. I think Tua's pretty dual threat. He can fucking run too.
Yes.
That one. See, here's the big difference in that game too. Here's the play that I think changed.
You're talking about the reverse field, right?
Yes, because if Georgia takes him down and Bama has to punt that ball, Georgia
it was huge.
Relinquish the lead.
It was huge.
Yeah, that would have been.
I knew it was huge when it happened.
I remember that play. That should have been a tackle. How did he get all those yards?
He bounced out of like 7 damn tackles. They just took it for 13 yards.
A freaking monster in the Rose Bowl, okay?
Well,
no, it's crazy. These teams that were in those two teams last night, they made incredible plays and incredible moments throughout the playoffs. Because people forget even though Clemson was definitely the lesser of the 4 teams, Alabama wasn't just rolling up on them the whole game. It was 10-6 in the 4th,
right.
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
I didn't watch the whole game. I was too depressed. But I will say that, Clemson's not a joke either. All 4 of those, Bama had to make some damn good plays to win that game against Clemson as well. And so, those two teams made a lot of plays. And last night, I think Georgia just ran out of magic a little bit because, look, to do what you did in Pasadena and then to come back and play against Alabama and to play that long, you could tell at the end it felt like UGA kind of had that. They were kind of worn down.
Yeah, the defense was
They were. That's what I'm saying. They were gassed. They were tired. They were done. There was nothing left in the tank.
It's tough, man. It's tough to play those type of, because the energy that Georgia output to get that game to where it was in the first half, and then also the second half against Oklahoma. That's a lot to do in 1 week.
Absolutely.
It's hard to beat 2 great teams in 1 week.
Yeah.
If it was flipped and Georgia had to beat Clemson and Alabama had to beat Oklahoma, it may have gone the other way just because of that.
Okay, guys. Before we go, I want to do something really retarded, and I want to get everybody to give a very early prediction on what the Final Four is going to be next year, starting with Curtis.
Final Four. Let's see. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama.
Again? You think Georgia and Alabama again?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Auburn's going to be annoying and make a rematch happen, or somebody's undefeated and someone has just one close loss.
Auburn's not going to be as good as they have. They're going to lose Kerryon Johnson.
But they get Petway back.
Petway has always had injuries. I mean, he's injury prone.
That's
and
fair.
for the past 2 seasons, every game that he came up against Georgia, we never played against him because he was hurt.
Curtis, you must.
So,
Curtis, you must be thinking of something along the lines of Georgia and Alabama both going undefeated and playing in the.
Yeah, I mean,
and then
I'm gonna be completely honest with you because I'm more realistic of a Georgia fan. We do have an easier schedule than we had this year, and I mean, UMass and Middle Tennessee and it was some other cupcake school, and I even looked at it and I was like, wow, this is kind of soft. And I can see, them running the table. I can see it.
So you're looking at Alabama and Georgia possibly meeting undefeated in the SEC championship game, and the
Holy cow, you're right. What the hell? Who allowed them to schedule like that, bro?
Did you see the schedule?
Austin P, Massachusetts.
That's what it was. Yeah, Austin P.
Hold on now.
Yeah, that's what.
UMass took Tennessee to the wire this year.
Now, a shaving cream built to take the speed of the new super sharp blades, Old Spice Smooth Shave.
Jesus Christ, that hurt. I'm still gonna have it.
I'm the greatest smack talker on the fucking face of the earth right now.
No, whoa. Okay, all right, fellas, time out. Come on, give me a second here. Fellas, pause. Just give me a second, man. Pause. Pause. Give me a second. Let me pause. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's all about here at SmackDown.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah, that was it.
But we're talking about Tennessee, though.
That's what I'm saying. It's Tennessee, So,
Here's the big games. Here's the big games, I think, for Georgia. At Missouri. And...
Wait a minute. Drew Lock is gone, right? He's going to the pros, right? He's like a senior. I thought he was a senior. He could be he could be a fifth-year senior and still play.
I think he does have a fifth year.
Yeah, that's right. He was out for a year.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean Devine, give us your final four for 2018 season.
Well, I haven't looked at any of the schedules yet for next year for really any of the contenders, but so this is way too early. But
exactly, that's why I called it retarded. But it's interesting.
I think Georgia will play Alabama again in the SEC championship game, and unfortunately, I think they lose a little too much from the. I think they lose a lot of that defense, and of course Chubb and Michelle. So I think Alabama wins that game, and Alabama's in the Final Four. I like Ohio State to probably beat Wisconsin again in the Big Ten title game. So Ohio State's in. Sneaky pick here. I think Mark Richt is really putting something together in Miami, and if they can find a quarterback down there, I think Miami's going to win the ACC next year.
That's still Rick, man. And he'll find some way to Rick it up. But go ahead.
And so those like having a receiver catch a pass at the 4-yard line with no timeouts,
or have a quarterback in to throw the game to make a pass that haven't thrown 5 passes all season. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's not on Mark Richt. The quarterback and the receiver there got to know they don't have any timeouts. So, but
I know it's not on Mark Richt. I was just being a little sarcastic.
But so those are 3, and then it's going to be to me the Washington USC game in the Pac-12. Whoever wins that, if they have
look out for Arizona, by the way, a dark horse out there. Arizona, a little taste.
If either of those teams has a decent win-loss record, it's going to come down to that winner, and then I figure Oklahoma will probably win the Big 12 because I just don't see much there. Maybe Texas is a little better. TCU will kind of be there, but I mean, with the amount of talent
Oklahoma State will probably fall off there.
All right, Sean Cagle.
Yeah, because Rudolph leaves, right?
Sean.
I think I'm going to go and follow suit with Curtis. I think it's going to end up being Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. I believe it will be.
Okay. Timothy.
Well, I've got, Alabama, Georgia is a coin flip, but I said it at the beginning, so I'm going to stick to it. I do think that Georgia loses just a little bit too much to get over Alabama this next year, although their freshmen are really good and their class is really good, so they could prove me wrong. I'll say Alabama wins the SEC and gets in. I got Georgia probably having 2 losses, a loss, and then a loss to the Tide in the SEC title game, just to trip up somewhere, just because they have, the SEC should be better next year. I can't see Miami because they got LSU at AT&T Stadium in the first week of the season,
right?
And then they also play at Toledo, and they're not really they've proven they don't do very well on the road in the middle in Mid-America.
Yeah, Toledo's a capable team.
Yeah, Toledo's capable, even though they decided to shit the bed against App State. But
let's
anyway,
not toot LSU's horn too much.
I do think, they're a dumpster fire right now under Coach O. Let's not kid ourselves.
They only scored 17 points on a bad Notre Dame defense. So.
Ohio State has they play in Arlington against TCU, so that'll be interesting. But I do think they end up getting there, even if they lose that game. As good as I think Penn State could be next year, I don't think that they'll be good enough to beat Ohio State, even in Happy Valley. So I'll have Ohio State and Alabama. I have Oklahoma, but I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma fell off a little bit. But there's no, even though OU always schedules well non-conference and there's no cupcake, so to speak, this year, there's no Ohio State. There's no juggernaut that I see giving them a test early that can knock them out, like an Ohio State could have, like they did in 2016. The fourth spot's what's hard because I could go Clemson here.
Mm-hmm.
I could go Florida State maybe as a dark horse, but I think I'm going to go Washington. I think I'm going to go Washington.
That's a real dark horse, though, isn't it?
Well, the thing is a 4-year experienced team. Chris Peterson's as good of a coach as anybody in the country. They're going to have Gaskin back. They're going to have Browning back. Their defense is always good, and the Pac-12 is very winnable. Stanford loses Bryce Love. They're always pretty okay. They own Washington State somehow. I mean, regardless of how good Washington State is in a given year, Washington's going to kick their ass just because they have their number. And then USC, I have question marks at quarterback for them right now. So it's a see and tell. Obviously, USC is going to have the talent, but we haven't seen Helton do anything without Darnold. So I need to see that he can before I can say I can thumbs up USC. I'll go Washington because I don't think anyone on the schedule beats them, and once again, they have a weak schedule.
All right, guys.
Hang on. Before we go, who's the Group of 5 team for next year?
The one that pulls a UCF?
Well, the one that gets to the New Year's Six game. We'll say that.
Okay. I think it'll be one of the Florida teams.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you can look at UCF or you can look at USF. I think they might do pretty good next year.
And they got that fast Florida talent. I think I got Boise State because they returned their quarterback. And, the way they ended this season, obviously they started brutally, but the way they end this season, I think they might have a chance.
I haven't looked at Florida Atlantic's schedule, but
they play Oklahoma in week 1.
Kiffin does? Oh, shit.
with a former OU quarterback. OU just kicked off this freshman quarterback, and they went and signed with FAU.
Wow.
He'll probably be the starter, so it'll be a former OU recruit starting against the Sooners in Norman.
Well.
Yeah, Kiffin can't recruit now.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you all later.
All right, thanks, man. You have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Raid's here! Raid!
Yes, Raid. New bug killer discovery from Johnson's Wax. Raid contacts and kills all kinds of bugs indoors. Raid hunts them down like radar. Sweeps bugs from the air. Attacks them as they crawl. And kills them dead. A little goes a long way. Kills bugs even where they hide. Yes, Raid kills flies, mosquitoes, roaches, ants, all kinds of bugs indoors. Outdoors, Raid protects your garden, too. A little kills insects that attack flowering plants, evergreens, vegetables. Caution, ordinary household sprays kill plants. Raid saves plants. So don't buy several bug killers. Get Raid, first bug killer for house and garden. Raid House and Garden Bug Killer.
Smacking Off invites you to join us on the podcast. If you have an opinion on an upcoming game, some commentary on your conference, or want to roll with one of your fellow smackers on air, hit us up. You can message us at the Smacking Off or X's and O's Facebook pages, email me at maddenshannon@toothfairy.com, or call us on the Smack line, 304-508-BAIT. And as always, fuck your team.
Down the clock winds. Good rush. Stidham under pressure. Throws it. Intercepted. I don't know if he was trying to throw it away or what. But UCF is 24 seconds away from the trouble in the backfield. Thrown out. He's in the ball deep. Touchdown, Florida.
We're back with Smacking Off. We're here with Sean Vergowven. He's a Michigan State fan, but he feels that UCF might have got slotted by the system. You got the floor, Sean.
Okay, so let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room. Alabama is clearly the best team in the SEC. That's a given. Okay, we're going to address that elephant right now. They're clearly the best team in the SEC. Even occasionally, if they do lose, they have shown that 99 out of 100 games they're going to win. So, however, they lost this year. They lost to Auburn. So playing at Jordan-Hare Stadium is a tough place to play. However, they lost in Jordan-Hare. They didn't even win their division, yet the committee saw fit to put them in. Now, I've heard all the arguments. I've heard them all about, hey, the four best teams deserve to be put in. And since Alabama won it all, it's really hard not to say that they're one of the four best teams, that they're not the best team. However, with UCF being undefeated and beating Auburn in their bowl, can you really argue that UCF didn't at least deserve a shot at number four? I mean, it's criminal that they're ranked so low as what they are.
Yes, I would definitely argue that they're not a top four team. And the basis of my argument would be that they don't play a Power 5 schedule. They played one Power 5 team this year, and that was a 4-8 Maryland team. And you know, sometimes teams go undefeated when they do not play a quality schedule. Now, having said that, they did play some decent Group of 5 teams, but they didn't play a Power 5 schedule, and there is a difference, in my opinion.
Okay. I absolutely agree. Playing Power 5, even if it is the ACC, where a majority of that is a joke, or the Pac-12, the whole conference is a joke. But at the end of the day, you're right. It is not a Power 5. However, exactly what was asked of them. They won 12 games, and then they won their conference. That is exactly what is asked of them. If we're going to sit here and say that the national championship is a true national champion, as Ohio State put on all their crap in 2014, the first undisputed champion. If a Group of 5 is 13-0, they really deserve it. I mean, they really do deserve a shot. Now, there's a chance that they could get blown out. I mean, and there's a high probability of it, but they at least deserve the opportunity.
You know what, Sean?
Because at the end of the
I do agree with you. I do agree with you. I don't think that they deserve a shot in a top 4, but I think that there needs to be some way of getting 8 teams a chance at these top 4 spots.
I absolutely agree. And I'd be happy to come back on and talk about how we can modify the playoffs to make it a true national championship.
I've got a great plan. With travel being an issue, fans are not going to travel that much. I think that what we do is we go back to the way conferences used to be and go ahead and axe the conference championship games, and allow conferences to have co-champs again. That's not really a problem. The rankings are still going to be what they are. You may have a co-champion in the Big Ten, let's say, and this team may have 3 losses, but 2 of them may be out of conference, and they're not going to be. They're apparently. They're obviously not going to be in the top 8, so they're not going to get in. Nope. But you may have. But anyway, axe the conference championship games and replace that weekend in the same cities that are hosting these championship games, what you would call a gateway to the CFP weekend, and you put your number 8 team versus your number 1 team, and you get the picture, number 7 versus number 2.
Yep.
And then go ahead.
Good.
The winner.
I was going to say. I was going to say keep the conference championships, and all you do is that quarterfinal game, if you will, that 4-game weekend. It's just played at the higher seed school. So let's say that let's say that by some miracle Boise State is in the top 4.
Right.
Then Alabama or whoever would have to travel to Boise to play on that stupid blue field in the middle of December. Because honestly, I think you're right. You're not going to get fans to travel to bowls 3 weekends in a row to go to these games.
Right.
Because that's ultimately the driver. So if you do
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so if you do it at the higher seed school, you already have a built-in fan base, because you can't tell me that Boise State isn't going to sell every seat in the house to watch Alabama play in Boise, or in Ohio State isn't going to sell out to play against Auburn or USC in December in Columbus.
You're right. It's either got to be that way, or what I said with the conference championship games. You can't have demand fans to travel across country as many times as what something like this would do. It's either going to have to be a hosted game, or it's going to have to take the place of the conference championships.
No, you're absolutely right, because the whole the logistics behind it just doesn't work, because if we do it let's say we do it at a bowl game, right? So I'll take the Big Ten championship, for example. A lower bowl Big Ten championship game was running you about $100 to $150. That's completely a reasonable ticket, right? That's a completely reasonable price for a game. Now, if you look at some of these bowls, like the national championship, at the end of it, like I think at kickoff was like $1,500 for a lower bowl.
Right.
No fan can afford that, can afford multiple weeks of that. So having them at hosted bowls where they really, truly, all they do care about is money, is putting fans into the seats, I just don't think it can happen. But if you host it at Ohio State, or hell, we all know Tuscaloosa is going to hold at least one of these games. There's a damn good chance every year until Saban retires. Alabama will sell out that stadium to see USC come into Tuscaloosa, or even a UCF. Alabama fans sell out that stadium week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
So that stadium will have butts in the seats. And yes, it will be a tough game for those lower seeds, but it's no different than the NFL when you have to go to Foxborough, or you have to go to Soldier Field, or you have to go wherever to play. Yeah, it is a road game. You are playing in a hostile environment.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and then you have guys, go ahead.
We're going to have to get together at some point during the off season, maybe in the next month or two, and we're going to have to do a segment and lay this plan out, the plan you're talking about, and my plan as well, and we're going to have to see if we can get some of the higher ups talking, maybe, man.
Absolutely, because if you look at it, the majority, the top 10 teams, yes, there's a little fluctuation, but so you can say even the top 15 teams. The top 15 teams always have a national fan base. So even if by some miracle Alabama is like number 6, and they have to travel to Ohio, or they have to travel to Michigan, or they have to travel to California, you can be damn well there's Alabama fans in Ohio, Michigan, California that want to see the Tide play, that are willing to pay out of the nose for it, but they never come there.
If you want to win the game, you gotta take a good aim and get the most marbles with your hippo. Playing Hungry, Hungry Hippos. Hungry, Hungry Hippos.
Hungry, Hungry Hippos is the name of the game, and whoever hippo gets the most marbles wins.
Playing Hungry, Hungry Hippos. Hungry, Hungry Hippos.
I win! Hungry, Hungry Hippos, new from Hasbro.
So it's like, absolutely there's going to be people in there. Now, of course, you're going to have schools like UCF. UCF probably does not have a national fan base, but there will be people there rooting them on, because they're going to be playing against a team that they hate. Either if it's Ohio State, if it's Michigan, if it's Alabama, they're going to be playing against the team that they hate, and there's going to be people from their rival fan bases that are rooting for them. But to go back to the original point of why UCF is the national champion.
Okay.
UCF played a group of 5 schedule, and yes, it is not as tough as a Power 5. However, they did everything they were asked to. Alabama could not. Alabama did not do the bare minimum of what they were asked to do. They couldn't win their division. That was the simplest thing that was asked of Alabama to make the playoffs. Division, right. Win your conference. So let's say that Alabama beats Auburn. But let's just say that Alabama beats Auburn, and then Alabama loses to Georgia in the SEC title game. There's no way Alabama's number 4, because I mean Wisconsin was number what, 3 or 4 going into the championship week, and then they lost by a touchdown to Ohio State, and they fell out of the top 4. So losing your conference championship game matters. I mean, it really does. Wisconsin got penalized for playing in the conference championship game.
But
Wisconsin had just said,
yeah.
Good.
You have to admit, though, that as far as, not making your conference title game, Alabama being asked to do that to get into the playoffs is obviously wasn't true. You can get
No.
And it wasn't true of Ohio State last year. The committee is not using that. I think it helps sometimes, especially in Alabama's case. It would have definitely been a boost if they would have been able to get to the conference championship game having one loss. But
I would argue this, that Bama and Ohio State last year, they did not get in. They did not get in based upon their record or based upon their hell, even what they'd done that year. They got put in based on reputation alone. That is why Bama and Ohio State got in, is because they got put in based on reputation alone. If you look before the playoffs, Bama's best win was LSU, who lost at home to Troy. So it's not like Bama beat a bunch of great teams.
Now hold on. Now LSU did beat Auburn.
They did. But they still lost to Troy.
No, that's true.
That's worth 5. That's worth 5 losses to Iowa by 50. I mean, if you lose to if you lose to a mid-major team, you really don't have a say for being a good team.
Well, I think that really what got Ohio State was just how badly they lost.
It was the 50 burger. Yeah, it was the 50 burger Iowa hung on them. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, they lost by a touchdown and it was 55-48. No, they lost like 55 to like 30. That's what knocked them out.
Mm-hmm. I really think that if Ohio State goes to Iowa and comes up a field goal short, I think Ohio State would have been in. Absolutely.
But you're right. It's because they lost by so much, so badly. So since Urban Meyer has been at Ohio State, I will say that Ohio State has not been the better team twice in all of those games. It's the 2013 Michigan State game and the Iowa game this year. Those are the two games where I'm like, okay, Ohio State is not the better team on the field. But if you look, it is brutal. I agree. Ohio State didn't deserve to be in. And that conversation we had when the rankings were announced.
Right.
Both Alabama and Ohio State have a case for it. But a 13-0 a UCF or a 12-0 UCF had a better case.
I disagree with that, just simply because of their schedule.
And I get that. But when you're scheduling Mercer the second to last week of the year, schedule kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, but it doesn't go out the window. They still played a Power 5 schedule. They played 9 Power 5 schools.
Oh yeah, they played Florida State, didn't they? They played a Power 5, but you could argue Ohio State played 10 of them, and they both beat the same exact amount of them.
Yeah, but one of them didn't get beat by 31 points to an unranked team. And when it comes down to it, if we're making an argument, if we're arguing why Alabama got in, I think Alabama got in by default.
Absolutely. Because I don't think there was a better option.
Right. And that was it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's my argument. The only true better option was UCF, and there was no way the committee was going to put UCF in. It wasn't.
And I definitely agree with that decision. You don't, and that's completely fine. And we can disagree. We can agree to disagree. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing that the problem with UCF's schedule is when you play Power 5 schools. I mean, I think UCF could compete with any top 10 team on a given day. But could they win 13 games playing a Power 5 schedule? I do not think they could.
I don't know if they could. I mean, it's just like Boise State. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. They were the BCS buster, right? Because
Right.
Boise State was, hey, we will come to your place, we will play you, and we will beat you. And they did it time and time and time again. And then they beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. And so it's like, oh, hey, maybe Boise State's for real. But then Chris Peterson leaves to go coach Washington, and all of a sudden Boise State's still in the Mountain West, and they're still, 8-5 in that schedule.
Right.
So I agree that if we put UCF in even the worst of the Power 5, the Pac-12, they still probably have 3 or 4 losses. And that's, I get it. I'm not advocating that UCF is some powerhouse that is absolutely going to destroy Bama and Clemson and just run their way to a national championship. My argument is we will never know, because they had a true legitimate claim to be playing in the playoffs at 12-0, but the committee wouldn't put them in. And believe me, the committee, as much as we want to claim it's about putting the 4 best teams in, money is a factor.
And money's always a factor.
Clemson, yeah, exactly. Clemson, UCF, that's not moving tickets. Nobody's putting their butt in the seat for that. And so it's like, okay, cool, Clemson, UCF, nobody cares. The Clemson Bama triple, what did they call it? Clemson Bama round 3 or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, that sold more tickets. Of course that was going to sell more tickets. So I absolutely agree that the Clemson Bama match was going to move more tickets and put more butts in seats. However, I think UCF had a legitimate claim to it, and we will never know. It's the same argument as '97 when Michigan and Nebraska split the championship because the coaches put Nebraska and the AP put Michigan. We'll never know because they didn't play.
Breakfast. I'm hungry. Take it from Carinkles. That's me. The best breakfast under the big top is Post Sugar Rice Carinkles. So crinkly, so delicious, so different. Each grain of rice in Sugar Rice Carinkles is carinkled with honey and sugar. It's so good, I crinkle every time I eat it. Yep, no matter what other rice cereal you've ever tried, you'll love Post Sugar Rice Carinkles best of all. Honey and sugar make it different and wonderful. A circus of fun to eat. So you crinkle on down to the store for Post Sugar Rice Carinkles, the greatest cereal treat on earth.
Visit our Facebook pages, Smacking Off the Podcast fan page and Smacking Off the Podcast group page. Facebook.com/group/smackoff. Facebook.com/smackologists.
And so it's one of those things. This was supposed to eliminate these conversations of who would win, like who would win on a field. And UCF had a legitimate claim to the playoffs. Now, do I think they win the playoffs? Not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell do they get lucky 2 weeks in a row to beat Clemson and then Georgia. Run over by one of those two. Even if they manage to beat Clemson by some miracle, Georgia's just going to beat the crap out of them. But we'll never know because they were never given that opportunity. Instead, we got a one-loss Alabama team that couldn't even win its own division, let alone conference, in there. So, I mean, and I made the same, I had that same argument last year with Ohio State getting in over Penn State. And again, Penn State lost, 49-3 to Michigan. And then they went on like a 10-game run. But the fact they lost that badly is what kept them out. They had 2 losses, and that was what kept them out. Even though they were the Big Ten champions, Ohio State got in over them. And I don't agree with it. And we will never know because the committee royally screwed the pooch on it. UCF in just to let them get destroyed. Because it would eliminate all of the conversation. And then plus Georgia wins the national championship.
Right.
Because right now, I mean, it is clear the SEC is Alabama and everybody else. I mean, and you could even argue that that's about college football in general. is you have Alabama, and then you have 128 other schools that are desperately trying to hope to catch Alabama on a bad day. I think I saw a stat after the national championship. Nick Saban has lost like 6 games or something at Alabama. It's something stupid. Like, he has lost less games in, 8 years than most people play in a season?
Right.
Like, it is insane what the machine of Alabama under Nick Saban is doing. So, you're right. Alabama absolutely is the best team in the SEC and arguably the best team in the country. But the fact we're having this conversation shows that the committee just kind of screwed the pooch on it, because this whole committee and playoff thing was supposed to eliminate the bet. It was supposed to put the 4 best teams in, and UCF had a legitimate claim. They had a claim that none of the other 4 had. They had won every game, and that was one of the first things that was said during 2014 was, if you win, you're in. Well, they won, and they're on the outside looking in. Hell, they're not even in the top. They're not even number 5. They're like number 7 or something.
I think they're actually number 6.
It's like, yeah. So it's like they're not even number 5. They're number 6, and they're the only undefeated team.
I think that's got a lot to do with their schedule still.
I absolutely agree. Like we said, like they're not getting in on they're not getting in on a group of 5 schedule. Now, had they played? Now, let me ask this: had UCF played, let's say they played Michigan and beat them, and they played what was another decent team? They played a Kentucky and beat them. Because they at that point they had 3 non-conference games, and 2 of them were against Power 5 teams that had winning records and did rather well, and they beat those teams. Would you agree that this is a team that had a good chance of? That had a good case for making the playoffs?
Playing 2 Power 5 teams would have definitely been better than playing 1. You do realize that they had a scheduled game with Georgia Tech, and it got canceled due to the hurricane.
Yeah, that's why they're 13-0 instead of 14-0. Yeah. So, I mean, they tried. I mean, and you could say the same thing about Alabama. Like, Florida State traditionally is going to be a decent school. It's not a great school. So it was very odd to see Florida State at 6-6, and that's Alabama's like second best win. It's not Alabama's fault that Florida State shit the bed. It's like they did what they scheduled a Power 5, and that's really what's been asked of them. And most of the complaints I've seen about Alabama is this: one, you do play Power 5 teams, but it's in neutral sites or in Tuscaloosa. Is every year your bye week is before LSU, and then you play an FCS team right before Auburn, and you play 8 conference games instead of 9. Whereas every other Power 5 has moved to 9 conference games. So it's one of those things, like there's some rules that Saban is exploiting to work to his benefit. Which, hey, if you're, like the saying goes, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? So it's really hard to fault him to say because he's following those rules to his advantage. But I mean, in my personal opinion, this can all be solved by saying any win against an FCS doesn't count. So if you schedule an FCS and it's not an emergency, right? Like if you have a group of 5 or a Power 5 back out of you on the last minute, like Vanderbilt did to Ohio State. Okay, you can schedule an FCS because you need it. You need it scheduled for years, before the start of the season type thing. Then yeah, this doesn't count as a win. It's just money for the school, for the local economy. Because honestly, it shouldn't count. Because there was this. Do you remember the big hubbub about Florida State being 6-6 and having that win against an FCS team?
Yes.
Actually make them 5-6. So, I mean, technically, Alabama at the end of the season was 10-1 because of Mercer, instead of being, 11-1. And can you say that a 10-1 team deserved to be in over an 11-1 or a 12-1 in the case of Wisconsin? I mean, and Wisconsin got screwed by their schedule because you look and the Big Ten West was down. I mean, way down this year. The second best team in the Big Ten West was Northwestern, and they didn't get ranked until week 10. So going through the Big Ten West at 12-0 doesn't really hold a lot of weight, and that was the problem, because even after they lost the Big Ten championship game, I think they only dropped to 7.
Right.
or it might have been 6. Like, they didn't drop far because it was a close game against a good opponent. But the fact that that was the first ranked opponent they played at the time of the game, that was the problem. So.
Okay. Well, Sean, I wanted to give you a chance to voice your opinion on this, and you were really the only person, UCF apologist, that I could find to come on and do this about it. So
I'll stand by it, man. You know that. I will always come on and defend my opinions, even if they're a little unpopular in the state of Alabama. So,
I appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have this conversation about the playoff possibility.
Sounds great.
All right. Talk to you later, Sean.
Yep.
In honor of UCF's 13-0 season, despite the fact that they only played one Power 5 team the entire regular season. This is despite the fact that we already awarded the Life Championship for the 2017-18 season to Auburn, in the spirit of dumbfuckery, and moving the goalposts in the middle of the game, we now award UCF a share of the 2017-18 Life Championship. This is for you UCF dick riders. Here's an official championship you can all be proud of. Here's to you and your illogical coping mechanisms. Fuck your teams. UCF is now your daddy, today and forever.
Please subscribe to our channel by clicking the small smacking off icon at the top of the screen now. Click the link at the bottom of the screen to watch last week's episode.